All right, guys. I'm here today to give you guys a persuasive speech on the Second Amendment, gun rights, I guess you could say, but mainly the Second Amendment and everybody's right to bear arms. I believe it is imperative for all citizens to have the right to bear arms, and it's not me. Everybody has the right to own a bazooka way, or shoot a machine gun, or mount a machine gun on top of your truck. But more just the way you can have a small personal defense thing, if you put a baseball bat or a knife in your house to defend your home. I think a great quote to really embody how I feel about it. I mean, obviously it's great for like self-defense in the sense of somebody breaking into your house and trying to steal your things or hurt you or something like that. But there's a great Thomas Jefferson quote that says, "The most important reason for the people to retain the right to keep and bear arms is as a last resort to defend themselves from tyranny and government." Which, although I don't believe the government's going to go turn into a shadow government overnight and overthrow the people, anything like that, we have seen things like that happen many times in history. Many times, not so much overnight, I guess, but like a dictatorship was established gradually, and then your rights start to go away, and if you don't have the right naturally set upon you to defend yourself and or to rise up against the government, then how can you ever get out of that? So I think it's at least good just to, people, I don't know, people take it really way too seriously sometimes. They get, say that that's never going to happen. But if it did happen, it would really suck if you didn't have that right. So there you go. Also, if you've seen the movie Red Dawn, I highly recommend you see it. It's an old 1970, 78, 79 movie about the Soviets invading America, and all these high schoolers head up into the hills with AKs and hide out and then repel against the Russians. Great movie, great movie. Wolverines. You watch the movie, you'll know what I mean by that. So the way I see this, my solution to extending gun rights, I guess you could say extending, I don't know, I'd say more than anything reforming gun rights in the Second Amendment. I don't necessarily think they should be looser. I think, first of all, I think it should be something standardized across all 50 states. Their gun laws vary unbelievably across the 50 states. In states like this one, like Idaho, and Alaska, and Texas, you can own a bazooka and a machine gun. You can get whatever the hell you want here. You can own a tank. But in California, or even like, let's say Washington, D.C., you can't own anything in Washington, D.C. I think that's kind of an exception, if it makes sense there. But in like California, you can own guns, but it's very difficult. You never can carry a gun on your person, ever, unless you're like a cop. So it's, it's really, it's just hard to keep track of all that. I think it's kind of ridiculous. It should be something that's standard across the country. And my solution to that's pretty simple. The Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, or ATF, are the people who regulate all firearm purchases and background checks and everything that goes into buying a firearm in the country. When you hear like the 3-day waiting period in California, they're the people who are doing that. And right now, they do a pretty good job of checking everything. They do everything through the FBI or with help from the FBI to do full background checks on everybody. You can't have a criminal record of really, nothing like severe, like you can't have a felony or a misdemeanor. And even in Idaho, and I think those are, naturally, those are really good things. But I see a great solution to it would be to establish like a national registry where every single firearm is logged in, kind of like a Carfax report for guns. So whenever one private party transfers a gun to another person, it's like a Carfax report. You can look back and see everything this gun's been involved with, who's owned it, for how long, blah, 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 how old it is, all this kind of stuff. And that way, we could also regulate, or not regulate so much as track individual firearms really well. So if a firearm was ever used at the scene of a crime, and then we were like, all right, the last guy who owned it was Joe Smith. We're not going to go arrest him because we can look at the Carfax report for the gun and say, oh, it was stolen from him 6 months ago here and here, so we know the guy must be from this area, stuff like that. And it'll help us track the firearms and keep them out of criminal hands and keep guns in the hands of law-abiding citizens. There's a quote that, all the far right groups like the NRA and everything uses a lot that says, stricter gun laws only keep guns out of the innocent. So that, out of law-abiding citizens, they don't keep them out of the hands of criminals. Although that's sometimes taken way too far, there is a lot of validity to that. If you think about it, if you're a criminal and you can't go, let's say you have a felony and you can't go buy a gun, well, you'll go buy a gun from somebody who can give you a gun, whereas if you're just somebody who wants to defend your home, it's unlikely that you're going to go to a back alley and get all sketchy to buy a 45 caliber handgun. But also, I believe if we're gonna, like extend / just reform gun rights, we need to really change the way we educate and train people who buy guns. I think it's ridiculous that you can just buy a gun and then just have a gun, because it is unbelievable how many people own firearms and are not even comfortable shooting them, even though it's their own gun. They're not comfortable loading it. They don't even know how to operate the gun. If the gun jams, they don't know what to do. They don't know anything. And that's all very, very, very dangerous. And it's just going to end up with innocent people getting hurt all the time. So I think there needs to be a much bigger emphasis on education and training, like as a requirement. You need to show proficiency, like with a firearm, that you know what you're doing. And then I really don't see that much harm in it. But so I can tell you a story and visualize it here. I have a very real replica of a firearm. It's a replica of a 45 caliber handgun. Training would be, things like showing proficiency. For example, my mother got her concealed weapons permit about 8 months ago, I think. But she got the license, so technically that allows you to carry a loaded handgun, or any firearm for that matter, in a concealed place, like in your purse or something, or tucked behind your back, where nobody can see it. But it's crazy. But the thing is, the other day, well, I don't need to get into it, but the other day, either way, she wanted to get the gun. And she went in my room, got a gun that we have in the house, and, not in my room, excuse me, now. And went and got a gun that we had in the house, and she didn't know what the hell to do with it. Even though she had a license to carry it concealed, she didn't know what she was doing with the gun. And I find that to be ridiculous. So gun training in the sense of gun safety, things like always keeping the muzzle down, never, ever, ever pointing it at somebody, even in jest. Just simple things like that can make the world, and the gun world at least, a much, much, much safer place. Alright, so just really quick here, you guys can take a look at this, make sure, keep gun safety in mind, keep it down, keep your finger off the trigger at all times. Only put your finger on the trigger if you intend to destroy what you're pointing the gun at. Okay. There's a story I can tell you. When I worked at a sporting goods store, one time a woman came in, her gun had jammed, and she wanted us to fix it. She wanted to know why it was jamming all day at the gun range. And so she came in and she claimed she had a concealed weapons permit and everything, and she was like, probably about 55 or 50. But she seemed like, when she was talking about the guns, she acted like she knew what she was talking about, very like she'd been around guns for a while. So she opens up the case, and where it's a small little concealable kind of pistol. And Rick, the guy I work with, the guy I was just telling you guys about, picks up the gun, and I'm standing directly to his right, and goes, okay, and as protocol, we always check the guns when they come in to make sure they're not loaded, because you would be shocked at how stupid people can be. He picks up the gun, and it goes off immediately, shooting a hole in the southern wall of the store, and right in front of me, there were actually 2 young Mexican kids over in the far corner of the store, and the gun went off. Bullet landed maybe 15 feet to their right. A really sketchy occurrence. Yeah, it was pretty crazy. But that right there is why we need training for people who own guns. Because this woman went to the range and was like, oh, my gun's jamming. I'll just go ahead and keep it fully loaded and everything and bring it into the store. Because she just didn't think about it. But you have to think about these things, because people can get really badly hurt that way. Here, I can show you my evidence real quick. If you guys want to see, you can read the Second Amendment. That's right there. And it says, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Check that out. You feel educated?
Very.
You should feel educated, because you're learning. Yeah, so just to wrap it up, I'd say to further advance gun rights, or I guess gun reform, for everybody too, for you guys who want to stay informed. The main thing is, just to stay informed, to know, just because it's a gun doesn't mean it's a horrible, horrible, horrible thing. It's no different than a knife or a baseball bat. Anything can hurt people, but it's the people whose hands that they're in when the whole situation changes. I don't believe we should take the guns out of the hands of the free citizens, but we also need to make big steps to cut down on how many people have guns in this country, because way too many people do, and that's why guns are everywhere in the United States. So. I hope you guys enjoyed my speech, and I hope I may have convinced you to become knowledgeable people who are staying alive. So thank you guys for listening.